Salvete, mihi nomen est Stella, ad hoc est Backroll the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 241 for December MMXXIII and the 14th anniversary. Back Row the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out MileHighComics.com. Because this is the last episode of the year, I thought I would go through my favorites of 2023. 2023 was a bit better than 2022, but here's hoping that 2024 is finally my year. I think I've gotten beat up enough. And goals for 2024 is to graduate with my master's in education, to get my licensure as an educator, and to get financially stable job and not have to have four sources of income and also get a new place to live. So that would be great. So let's just get into it with the favorites of 2023. And I would love for you all to write in and tell me what some of your favorites were and whether you have some goals of 2024 as well. So first up, and I'm just using last year, if you recall, I just kind of went through different topics and said what my top thing was. And this is borrowed a little bit from my friendly rivals at Quinoa, but have just made it my own. So, first of all, my favorite video game. Now, on my birthday, actually the day before, maybe, I had received an email from Best Buy that FedEx was dropping a package off on my birthday. And whenever I get these emails, either from UPS or some sort of shipping thing, and I know that I haven't bought something, I always get nervous that some fraudulent activity has happened on my credit card. And so I double check, like, no, I haven't. I haven't bought anything. Where is this coming from? Did some sleuthing. The Best Buy, it was shipping from a Best Buy in Pennsylvania. I'm like, I have no idea what this is. So, birthday, hanging around, I get it, large package. And I was like, it better not be what I think it is. And in fact, it was. It was a PlayStation 5. So then there was a mystery of who had sent this because I did not buy the PS5 because I think I was very clear that I was not financially stable enough to really reason through and make it make sense for me to get such a big item. So there was a small number of people that could have done this. And I thought back to when I got the Batgirl and Nightwing statue, because that was another mystery. And first went to my mom and I was like, "Did you?" But I hadn't really talked about it because it's not like I'm going to ask for Christmas this large ticket item. And then the next person that I went to, it was in fact. So I'll just call this person a mysterious benefactor. Um, I both, love this person as well as will strangle them the next time I see them because of this purchase. But I am very appreciative. So, of course, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was the bundle with it. That was the reason it's just so hard to watch my friends have it and play it. And obviously, I was staying off social media because I didn't want to know anything about it. And I was just like, I can wait. I can hold out until I get this, in the fall of 2024 as a gift to myself. Maybe that I've got a new place, got a great job, fingers crossed, and, get it. But here we are. So, Marvel Spider Man 2 is my favorite game so far. I've been loving it. Luckily, there's only one minor spoil that happened accidentally as I was scrolling through Instagram. Just like a villain popped up in photo mode, and I was like, I didn't know this villain was in the game, so I felt minorly spoiled. But he was actually the first villain that you end up fighting. And yeah, I've just been taking my time. I'll do a mission or two, and then I'll swing through the city and look around and do side missions. And I'm just loving it. The story is as engaging as always. The people are engaging so much so that, I'm getting annoyed at Peter for kind of blowing Miles off consistently. And I have the black suit now, which isn't a spoil because that is something that you see. in the ads and everything. And boys, is it fun? But I'm also nervous as to where it's going. And then Craven just being probably the deadliest version of Craven that I've ever seen, him and his hairy body. So yeah, just taking my time, but loving it. And now I'm off this week, so I'm just, except for Michael's, I'll go there a couple times, but I'm just loving being able to do nothing really productive and play that game. And so it's just great, and all the emotions and great story beats. I'm sorry that it didn't get any game of the year awards or any game awards. I think that's kind of silly. I think a lot of the things went to Baldur's Gate, probably because everybody wants to have sex with the bear. But yeah, I just can't recommend this enough, and still making my way through. I feel like I only just finished Act One, even though it says I'm 46% through, but that's because I'm doing a lot of the side stuff and things in the city. But just getting the suit, I don't know that I'm very far in. So we'll see. Next up, my top comic book of the year. While I still do really love Nightwing, kind of behind on that. I will say, honestly, as a sleeper and a surprise, I'm going to give it to Birds of Prey by Kelly Thompson and Leonardo Romero. I think even though we will do issue number 4, and so it's really only been coming out half of the year, started, I guess September was the first issue that came out. I'm very surprised, happily for sure, don't get me wrong, that I love this so much. I think that it's so good and that I eagerly await the next issue. And I think the writing is great, and each of the characters, their voices are really coming through, and they're each distinct, and there's just a lot of fun moments. And I'm just looking forward to see what this team holds in store and what this book holds in store as well. So, not a lot to say because I'm just going to talk about it in the next half of this episode, but I think that's my top comic book of 2023. For book, I'm going to give you two of them, and both of them I highly recommend. First of all, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This one I gave a 5 out of 5, and I don't often do that. I had actually a couple 5 out of 5s this year. So if I'll give you the synopsis for this one, I have talked about it before, and of course there is an Apple series starring Brie Larson that I recommend, but I always go for the book first. So chemist Elizabeth Zott is not your average woman. In fact, Elizabeth Zott would be the first to point out that there's no such thing as an average woman. But it's the early 1960s, and her all-male team at Hastings Research Institute takes a very unscientific view of equality, except for one, Calvin Evans, the lonely, brilliant Nobel Prize nominated grudge holder who falls in love with, of all things, her mind. True chemistry results. But like science, life is unpredictable, which is why a few years later, Elizabeth Zott finds herself not only a single mother, but the reluctant star of America's most beloved cooking show, Supper at Six. Elizabeth's unusual approach to cooking, quote, combine 1 tablespoon acetic acid with a pinch of sodium chloride, end quote, proves revolutionary. But as her following grows, not everyone is happy because, as it turns out, Elizabeth Zott isn't just teaching women to cook, she's daring them to change the status quo. Laugh out loud funny, shrewdly observant, and studded with a dazzling cast of supporting characters, Lessons in Chemistry is an original and vibrant as original and vibrant as the protagonist. And I fully agree with that. I remember seeing this when I was visiting my family, maybe for Thanksgiving, went to Barnes and Noble and saw this displayed everywhere. And I was like, what is this? And, recommends, and it was just like the book, it seemed like. And so I went and got it from the library because I never trust those displays, actually. I guess I'm just like a true nonconformist, and ate it up, loved it. Loved the voice of Elizabeth Zott. 100% agree with this, that the cast of characters, like the everyone who is surrounding Elizabeth Zott has their own distinct voice as well. Some of them have their own like POVs that will pop in, and there are some serious subject matters that come in as well. And of course, the time period being really is just interesting. So, highly recommend this book. I really, really loved it, and it is on one of my lists that I have that I want to own this book, but I haven't been buying books at all because I know I'm going to be moving, and the books is what makes me the most nervous about packing up and moving. So I'm like, I don't need any more yet until I move and I am settled. The other book I talked about because I read it in the summer for my young adult literature class, and I recommend it to other people just because I think it is amazing. I think it's really beautiful, and creative and powerful. It is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Xiomara Batista feels unheard and unable to hide in her Harlem neighborhood. Ever since her body grew into curves, she has learned to let her fists and her fierceness do the talking. But Xiomara has plenty she wants to say, and she pours all her frustration and passion onto the pages of the leather notebook, reciting the words to herself like prayers, especially after she catches feelings for a boy in her bio class named Amon, whom her family can never know about. With mommy's determination to force her daughter to obey the laws of the church, Xiomara understands that her thoughts are best kept to herself. So when she is invited to join her school slam poetry club, she doesn't know how she could ever attend without her mommy finding out. But she still can't stop thinking about performing her poems. Because in the face of a world that may not want to hear her, Xiomara refuses to be silent. Crackles with energy. Well, I guess these are all just quotes, but the novel is in verse, and it would have been the second one that I would have read in verse ever. The first one would have been a Jason Reynolds that we read, that was like a pre-read book of week 0. And this one, yeah, it was just amazing. It was certainly something that I could do in an English classroom or a book club and really look at the language and do close readings. And then the topics as well, this tension between family and religion, and yeah, body positivity, as well as consent, and also young boys, and how they are looking at her as well, and reacting to her and things like that. So definitely teachable moments for young women and young men, and just really an amazing read. So highly recommend this as well. And yet another example of why a lit is not something that you should just snub your nose at, because there are great books in there. Top anime of the year is Suzume, which came out, I think, in Japan in 2022, but I had seen it in 2023. And I have already talked about this as well, but just the short synopsis is a modern action adventure road story where a 17-year-old girl named Suzume helps a mysterious young man close down doors from the other side that are releasing disasters all over in Japan. And very much a story about grief. Of course, that young mysterious man turns into a three-legged chair, and family, and by the creators of Your Name, and I think Weathering with You, and 5 centimeters per second, all of those. It was, yeah, I think I talked about it when Ian Miller was on, because we had both seen this. But yeah, just really powerful, shocking moments also. And I remember the aunt yelling at Suzume, I'm still waiting for this to become available in the US so I can purchase it and watch it again. But highly recommend that. And I'll talk about The Boy and the Heron the second half, because I'd recently seen that. But the two share, I think, themes, which made it difficult to watch, or I guess fully appreciate The Boy and the Heron, because my issue is if I see something and love it and then find something else that is similar to it, then I don't appreciate that one as much. But Suzume would have definitely been my top. Okay, so now we're getting into some music here. And I wanted to, for the first time ever, I got to do Spotify Wrapped. And I guess people get embarrassed by their Spotify Wrapped, which I find really interesting. But I am not embarrassed. I'll absolutely explain, though, what these are, not out of embarrassment, just because, like, oh, this is interesting. So here's my Spotify wrap. 100% makes sense that Ali and AJ were number one. I'm surprised that one of their songs weren't number one, but that's quite all right. But yeah, that is totally me. I mean, they're gonna pop up 2 more times on my best of list. So Ali and AJ. Number two, I was surprised to see Gustavo Santaolalla, the composer of The Last of Us. But I often listen to either The Last of Us, or even right now I'm listening to the Marvel Spider-Man soundtrack when I'm doing work like UVA work, or if I'm doing school work. And so I think that's why that popped up. And then the last three canons, Mr. Wives and Metric. Mr. Wives had come out with a new album, so I was checking that out. And then Canons and Metric, just kind of getting to know them a bit better because I had a couple songs that I bought from them singles, and wanted to see what full discog their full discography was like. So I was watching those. But it's interesting that they pull that, because I feel like, well, I was listening to 30 Seconds from Mars too. So I'm surprised that that didn't pop up. But I guess time wise, it makes most sense. Top songs. So some of these, I would say two and three definitely make sense because I'm going to talk about them again. But one, four, and five, and I guess really all of them, the reason why they're there, and Overcome is by Nothing But Thieves. And I will listen on Spotify to a curated playlist that is based off of the Sirius XM Alt Nation at the time. So songs that are coming into play. And I'll do this often when I'm playing video games with Harry that don't require me to listen to sound like Fall Guys or even Aliens Fireteam Elite. And so I remember Overcome was like the first song on that playlist for a while. So that is definitely why that's number one, because I would just play that all the time when I pressed play on that alt list. Not Strong Enough and Blame Brett totally makes sense why I have that. I was even listening to, or yeah, I listened to Boy Genius's full album, and then also The Beaches, The Way by Manchester Orchestra, again, still on that list. And they're someone that I buy their music fully, their full album. So I have that full EP. And then Hello would have been by, oh no, shoot, I've forgotten their name. It's not Foster the People, but it's oh darn. But anyway, so those are all on that particular one. So not surprised at all, not embarrassed at all. Allie and AJ, thank you for being there. You lead me into, actually, both of those categories lead me in there. And it's interesting, it says modern rock. I would say alternative rock, but that all makes sense. So yeah, we get into it now. So the album of the year for me is With Love From by Ally and AJ. And this is their second full length album since, way back when they were Disney Channel kids. And of course, my number one from really the previous year, I would say, was The Touch of the Beat. So it explores Americana, folk music, indie pop, and it has influences from country music. And regarding the stylistic choice, AJ said, quote, I think being that Ally and I come from pop songwriting, that will always be an underbelly to our writing. But I do think opening up into an Americana kind of folk fits Ally and I really well. It's something that we want to pursue when we were younger. We also grew up listening to a lot of music that fell into that category. But in a way, when you're a strong songwriter and you're really confident in your work and you're open to working with other people and you're open to diverse ideas, when it comes to kind of floating between genres, I think that's when you can shine because you're not boxing yourself into a genre, end quote. And this is one of the reasons why I love Ally and AJ, and they're my favorite group. And I've been told this to them, when I met them, is that they evolve so much and they change so much and they are diverse because, even, they do have that pop. When they were coming out with their EPs, when they had returned, it was very much kind of the 80s synth. And then with, a touch of the beat, it was very California feel, like Beach Boys and that sort of thing. And then we change again. And so the fact that they don't fit in a box, they can change, they do all these different genres, I think is amazing. And that's why I just think that they're great. Sunchoke is my favorite track on that, and I've already used that once on this podcast on one of these IS's radio hours, so you're good there. We get into songs, and I will be a bit of a snob here. I am a snob, I think, with books and with music or musical theater. So just be aware that I will say some things that are going to be unsettling to some, and it's just my opinion. And you obviously can like what you like. So my number one song of the year, and there is an honorable mention, is Strong Enough by Boy Genius. And Boy Genius is a group or a super group that's made up of Julian Baker, Phoebe Bridgers, and Lucy Dacus. And I remember, now I don't remember the day, but I remember exactly what I was doing when I first heard this. I was, in fact, on the Alt Nation playlist on Spotify. I was playing a video game with Harry, and the first chorus came through. And usually, I mean, it's kind of in the background, right? I'm not necessarily playing or listening intently to the music that's playing when I'm playing a video game, unless I know it, I might hum along or something. And they get to the first chorus and it is a three-part harmony. And I remember like it just stopping me and me pausing what I was doing. And I turn over to look at what this is. And then I ended up doing research as to who is Boy Genius, what is this group, listening to that song, listening to it over and over again. It's an amazing song. I recommend looking up. I forgot to look up before I started this. There was an interview with them where they actually sing it slower and a cappella, and they talk about, what their lyrics are discussing, but certainly, like some mental difficulties and depression and things like that. And yeah, getting through the day sometimes. So definitely listen to the lyrics as well as look that up. I can't remember if it was Wired. It might have been Wired, actually. I don't think it was Vulture, but definitely. um I'm a sucker for harmonies. I think that if you have more than one member, you should be tapping into harmonies. The fact that they're using three-part harmonies, they're never on the same note, I think is amazing. It's one of the reasons why, here's my controversial note, I don't like K-pop. I just think that K-pop is lazy at times, because when you have members, because some of those groups have like upwards of four or five, six, seven members, and I'm not hearing too much. Like maybe I'll hear octave harmonies where someone's on the same note but different octaves. If you got seven people, you should be using that. Ally and AJ, they use harmonies. I'm listening to Olivia Rodrigo and the song You Can't Catch Me Now, which is, from Ballad of Songbirds and Serpents. And even just one person, there are segments that there are harmonies. And I just think that you need to tap into that. There's the beauty of music and having harmonies. And sometimes maybe what you're singing doesn't, you don't want to have that. um but yeah, I just think, with K-pop there's just no excuse. And some people, they tell me, because K-pop was trying to be forced upon me, and there's a couple songs that I like, but the songs that I like have the harmony, that they have complicated steps. But I think, well, then I'm going to throw back at you the fact that they often lip sync. So if they're doing the steps and they're lip syncing, why can't they be lip syncing to multiple part harmonies? So that is my controversial thought. Again, I know a lot of people like Korean pop, and definitely you can write me back and explain to me why they don't use harmonies if you so desire. And again, that's a generalization, because there are definitely groups that do use harmonies, but I just wish that there were more, especially with seven members. I mean, that would be awesome to hear seven-part harmonies coming through on some of those choruses. My honorable mention is Blame Brett by the Beaches. I just think it's a funny song, and something that's very catchy. So I'm obviously going to be playing strong enough during Zeiss's radio hour. Blame Brett, I might put at the end, but it's something that I love, but I also wouldn't recommend what's being said in there to other people. I mean, there's a line of, don't let me near your friends, don't let me near your dad. So you can get a kind of a sense of what it's about. But I do enjoy that song. My favorite TV series, it's interesting, it didn't like come to me very quickly, but I think it's going to be The Last of Us, that was on Max. A great adaptation. Of course, it does raises questions just about, this fine line as fans, and it might just be me, where you want an adaptation that's close to the video game you're playing. But if it's so close, why aren't you just playing the video game? But if it's not close, then you get upset. So it's hard to be in this weird, I don't know, liminal space. And I feel bad for creators, because boy, they don't have a lot that they are working with. I don't have a favorite TV episode, unlike last year. Nothing really popped out at me like Euphoria's specials did. So I'll move on. Top movie. kind of scan through everything. Boy, it's not any of those Jason films since I watched the whole catalog of Friday the 13th, but it is Women Talking. Now, technically, it came out in 2022, I think making its way through um, all the film festivals and everything, but it really hit the US in 2023, and that's when I saw it. The quick synopsis: do nothing, stay and fight, or leave. In 2010, the women of an isolated religious community grapple with reconciling a brutal reality with their faith. And I mean, basically, this is based off of a book. The premise is that some of the men, the younger men in their community, have been raping uh, their women. And the women, first of all, don't fully understand what has happened because they're younger. And the older women know immediately, like, if their daughters come to them, what has happened. And so, as I said, they can either do nothing and this cycle continues with the new batch of sons. They can stay and fight what is happening, or they can just leave the community. And because the women aren't allowed to read, I can't remember if it was aren't allowed or they just aren't taught, but there is a young man there that I think went off to get educated, and he is there writing everything down. And then when they come to vote, they actually draw pictures. There's a picture of like staying, fighting, and so they write down which they choose. This is such a compelling film. It's literally a group of women talking in a barn. And you would think just from that, oh, this is going to be terribly boring. But I was fully engaged that entire time, getting to know each of those characters, getting to know their history. Some of them are really, even like the toughest ones. You're like, what? And then you realize, oh, it's also happened to her. Um, Trying to, figure out why is this happening. Um, some people like excusing the young men, and some people there's no excuse for it. It's just really it's really powerful. The casting is great. Claire Foy's in there and Rooney Mara. They say Frances McDormand, but she's really only in like 2 to 5 minutes. That's pretty interesting. And it's pretty great, but there are like some things that kind of cut the tension at moments that you kind of get a breath of fresh air. Like one of the characters, there was dust on her glasses, and you see her, someone's like seriously talking, and you see her like looking around, and she's like, I'm so sorry, I think I'm dying, because she can't see through the glasses. And then everyone's like, it's just your glasses are dirty. So it's like it gives you a moment to breathe because everything is so heavy. But I highly recommend this. I won't spoil to say what they end up choosing, but I was not expecting this to be as amazing and powerful as it ended up being. My best or my favorite bad movie, which sometimes I know that a movie is not going to be, oh, I'm not going to like it. And, or, yeah, like it won't really hold up, with awards or any merit, but I will find it entertaining, like all the after films based on that series. I find those bad movies. This I accidentally found because I was leaving Cape Cod. I was leaving T-ticket to go down, and so I got two films because that's a 10-hour train ride. One was this one, My Fault or Culpa Mia, and the other one was, I think, The Extraction 2. And this was a surprise. Now, first of all, I was a bit bummed because I could tell immediately that they had dubbed it and it was in another language, which I did not know at the time that I downloaded it on Amazon Prime. So I loved it so much, or found it like so engaging and amazing, that when I went home and I was unpacking, I ended up watching it in its original Catalonian, I believe. So here's the tagline. You can see where the synopsis. Here it is. Noah has to leave her town, boyfriend, and friends behind and move into the mansion of her mother's new rich husband. There she meets Nick, her new stepbrother. She soon discovers that behind the image of a model son, Nick is hiding something. And in fact, romance blossoms. It's one of those we can't do this sort of thing, but they do between step siblings. So it is Merit wise, probably the same as the after films, but I think it's actually the quality is better. And I think there are two more, and I'm excited for it. So that's my favorite bad movie. You can find that for free on Amazon Prime. My favorite sporting event of 2023 is the New York, New Jersey Gotham winning the NWSL championship. I think I talked about this in October, maybe, or last episode, and just like the queer gods are smiling. The fact that, we have these two people, Ali Krieger and Megan Rapinoe, queer icons retiring, soccer icons retiring, meeting. And it was unfortunate for Megan, who got injured or re-injured like right at the beginning. So she was out, but then Gotham ended up winning. And of course, Ali Krieger is my favorite player. And it's just awesome for them to have their first championship and for her to have her first championship as well. And so now to have more medal, because she's got an Olympic medal of some sort, I'm pretty sure, and two World Cup championship medals. So my favorite. My favorite live event is 100%. They're popping up again. The Allie and AJ VIP experience. I think I gushed over this when it happened, so I don't again need to go through everything, but they're just such warm and delightful people. And, I always fear when I'm going to meet someone that I really am enamored with or respect highly, or I'm just such a fan that it's going to be unfortunate because you never want to meet your heroes. But this was just amazing. They're lovely. And I got to like spit out everything I wanted to say to them. And of course, it was a little pricey, but I think it's just one of those YOLO situations that you only live once. And if you love, a band that much, take a chance and do this. And I'm still thinking about it. Yeah, it's just one of my favorite things. I have a picture of me with them. I should have posted it here or brought it up. But if you're a friend with me on Facebook, and I think on Instagram I also posted it, you'll see me with the two of them. Maybe in the break I can pull it up. And then finally, I call this a socio-political event, and I did that last time with Sally Yates's report on the NWSL, the league, and sexual harassment and assault and things that were going on there, and investigating that. And really, I feel like I should rename it to human rights topic, my favorite human rights topic, because when you say socio-political, it makes it sound like it is optional. And whether, depending on which side you are on, will determine your belief in that. But really, the Sally Yates report, there's no side to be on. The only side is being on the side of the Sally Yates report and asking for change, demanding change to make soccer safe and usher in youth and be sure that they're protected. And so in the same vein, there's really no choice here. You can, well, there is actually, you can choose to be a good teacher or a bad teacher. So my human rights topic is, in fact, my favorite course this semester. And I think maybe my favorite course, I did really love my literacy courses and that YA literature, but the one that has really helped me grow the most was this cross-cultural education course. It was about multiculturalism. And we there are a lot of terms that come with this. So you might have heard of multicultural education. You might have heard of culturally responsive teaching, which has the or pedagogy, but teaching I think is more often used. And of course, it has CRT as the abbreviation. And then when people read that, they get really they get nervous about it because they think about critical race theory, which, my gosh, I mean, there are all of these things that people are upset about in education, the stakeholders, anyways, and or culturally sustaining pedagogy. So you might have heard all of those. And I will define, because I think there are some wrong answers to what multicultural education is. And there are a lot of different right answers. And for me, I will read from my final paper in that class, just it's only one paragraph there, on what multicultural education is. Okay. So, multicultural education is necessary for the psychological and physiological well being of our students. It is complex and at times contradictory in requiring us to understand the distinct identities that make up each individual student while instructing us to consider the student holistically as a human made up of many intersections of identity rather than a representative of one or two cultural aspects. It incites us to design curriculum that goes beyond heroes and holidays and instead considers various perspectives, including those from oft forgotten subordinated groups. Multicultural education seeks to repair historical socio-political tensions by delivering equity in the classroom so that each student has opportunity, whatever that opportunity may be. It removes deficit language. It removes deficit language from the mouths of educators, administrators, politicians, and others, and transforms student profiles from at risk to at promise. Finally, multicultural education is a cycle which requires self-education, practice, reflection, revision, and growth. So just to give you that idea. So it's something that, again, there are some contradictions or tensions within it. Like I said, you need to see this person as all the distinct identities, but also, hey, they're a full human. And so how do you engage all that? You also want to pull out their culture, right? So if I'm teaching someone who's from Mexico, like, oh, I'm going to try to use that, but you also don't want to use it in the way that you are othering them and that you're really focusing on the fact that they're from Mexico. And so now they feel set apart from other people who are not from Mexico. So it's a lot about being sensitive and respectful of your students. And I will say it talks about, this was my philosophy of being a multicultural educator. And of course, it's definitely a future tense because I'm not, well, I can do some stuff right now in the classroom as a sub, but I don't have mine yet. And very much I focus on relationships and building that through something that um, is not maybe explicitly their identity, but connected to their identity. So perhaps a shared love of reading, getting to know a student and building a relationship with them through that. And then hopefully through the different pieces that you're reading, they get to know you and begin to trust you and also your thoughts and feelings on different aspects. And then that can build into a deeper, more trusting relationship. The classroom environment that you're modeling behavior and empathy, and that it's creating a safe space that is respectful of all cultures and bringing all cultures to the forefront. Having communication with your colleagues. Maybe you don't have a good relationship with the student, but somebody else does. And so you can tap into that and find out, what's going on with this student. Maybe they're having a not so good day. Or for subs, as a sub, please, my gosh, leave sub plans and also be specific to certain students because there was a student that a teacher told me she doesn't like to work in class because she feels like I don't know, if she struggles with something, maybe she'll feel stupid. And so it's better for her to work elsewhere. And so, had I not been told that, I wouldn't have written her a pass to the library. So I'm like, absolutely go to the library so you can do this work and be on your own and not feel self conscious about things. So, certain things like that. And then the future is just like now I know what to look for my school, and I'll hear from administrators and other teachers talking about their school, what they believe in and what it's actually like. I do want to read my conclusion just because you can see how much I've grown, and then I'll talk about two areas in which I'm struggling. Think there was a third, but I've forgotten it. So I didn't realize how far I had to go to become a multicultural educator until I entered this course. Despite priding myself on being a loving and empathetic individual who seeks to be humanistic and constantly looks for self-improvement through education and diverse interactions. The readings have taught me so much about culture and identity, and no other course has caused me to take so much time to reflect on my teaching career and interactions with others. While I hold myself accountable to my actions and almost immediately apologize and learn from an experience, this class gave me the opportunity to reach out to students of the past, speak to them about their experiences, and apologize for not protecting them or perhaps even perpetuating problematic practices that were a part of the private school's hidden curriculum. for some of these conversations, I've also learned what I've done right. And while each student is different, I plan on making sure that I exhibit these practices more consistently. I cannot promise to be a perfect multicultural educator, but in a profession where the main responsibility is to safeguard students and train them to be good citizens, it is paramount that I continue on this journey with humbleness and a willingness to learn and change. And I think that's what I consistently try to do. But this course was just really made me think a lot. And like I said, I did reach out to other students. And I think for good or for ill, well, for both good and ill, I really didn't consider students their differences. So when I had students that were, let's say, Latina or Latino, I really was treating everyone the same, just with like, I think equality. I'll use equality, not equity, and just loving them all. And I think that's great because I'm not treating anyone differently. But then also, I think those students are suffering because they are just treated like everyone else. And so the fact that one of their identities is not really being looked at and ignored, I think is dangerous. So, I did apologize to some students, and one student didn't want to talk to me about her experiences and kind of wondered why I was asking, which is fine. I didn't have that strong of a relationship with her, but I was interested. And another one said that my class, she felt that she loved my class and she felt like she could be herself in it. And so that's really all I want. But now I know like more things that I can do to really harness different cultures and make it a great class. So I'm just super excited. I am oh yeah, now I know. Okay. So a couple things that I'm struggling with. First thing is front stage racism, which I found out in this class. So backstage and front stage racism, and these were termed, I'm not sure if they're a term, if it's a term that has come up elsewhere, but in Banks, this multicultural education textbook that we had. So backstage is, I think, what you would expect. You're with a group of, let's say, with white people, and you're making racist jokes and everything, but there's not a person of color with you. So that's like no one can see what you're doing. So it's backstage. Front stage racism is, for example, if you're just being like outwardly and ostentatiously nice to maybe a person of color, that's where they're like, oh, and it seems like, oh, this, what's going on here? And when I read that, I was like, I do that. I do that. Now it's not, I don't turn around and then start talking about that person. So my struggle is the reason why I'm doing that is because, for example, Michael's, because there are people everywhere, or all types of people that are coming into Michael's. So say someone from the Muslim community comes in there. Because I know that they have, and probably unfortunately will continue to have bad times, often at the hands of white people, I want to reassure someone that I'm not that. And so try to make a safe space. So I do try to be overly nice to sort of disarm them and like, hey, it's okay here. And so I do wonder, like, I think technically that is front stage racism. And I asked one of my peers who was teaching and is from the Middle East, I was like, this is what I do. Cause she was even talking about, she would at the beginning of the course kind of um, look at white people mostly and immediately have a judgment, and I'm like, well, unfortunately you're not wrong about that, but she had like come around to certain things that they're not all so bad, and I'm like, well, experience shows you that, unfortunately. And so I said, like, I do this. I mean, would you, if someone did that, if a white person came up to you and was like that, would you find that disingenuous? And she said no. So I'm just struggling, I guess, with that, because technically, again, it is front stage racism, but the intent behind it is honestly to like try to have them feel comfortable and not feel like something might happen to them because I am white. So struggling with that. Number two, struggling with this intersectionality of identities, and can Christian schools be multicultural centers? And I think, and I've been having this discussion with a former colleague of mine, obviously in terms of race and class, those identities, I think, and nationality, I would say that should be easy. You definitely need, I think, people in the building as well as on the board, and administrators to be representative of those as well. Like if you just have a bunch of white people in the administration, it's not going to be helpful. But where I struggle is if we have, and undoubtedly you will, Christian schools, queer students, how can you fully be a multicultural institution if you are ignoring a piece of the students' identities? And so I do wonder about that, especially now because a lot of schools, Christian schools, are putting out these, along with the statement of faith, which, hey, that's easy for me to sign, are these statements of like very specific black and white details, specifically when it comes to the LGBTQ plus communities. And I'm like, ooh. So first of all, if you're saying you're non-denominational, all of a sudden now you're not, because those are very specific denominational ideas. And number two, like you are now saying like, I'm going to say that this identity of yours, like you better keep it hidden because I'm not going to be addressing it at all. And so I do wonder about that. And then my third thing that I'm currently working with is just as a white educator, some of the practices that were brought up in both the Banks and then the Paris and Alim textbook. You just have to be careful, right? And that's where the relationships come into play. Because if I am, say, using Spanish, which I actually recently did because I was in ESOL sub for the past 3 days, and some students do not speak any English whatsoever. And so one student was asking me to help him with a cup of noodles, which I was thinking about back curls the entire time. But he was pointing to the microwave, and I said agua primo. So I was like using very basic Spanish of things I knew, but just like saying we need water first, and doing just little things. Or if I didn't know where the cup of noodles were, and I'm like, donde, just things like that. So as a white person, I think I just don't want it to be like you from the perspective of the student, you're making fun of me. So it has to be genuine. If you're using their language, if you, for example, decide to bring hip hop into the curriculum, which is coming from Paris and Alim's text on sustaining culture, which I think this authenticity and being genuine, you have to have the relationship first, which is why I think that's paramount. Because if I just come in and day one, let's do some hip hop stuff, they're going to be like, who's this white teacher and why is she doing this? But if you build this relationship and have trust and mutual respect, then I think those students know that I'm trying to reach out to you and I'm trying to engage your culture out of respect because I want to sustain that culture rather than, I'm making fun of you. But just something to like caution, any educator who might be listening to this that don't just start throwing Spanish because sometimes it's like cringy, like, why are you or is what's the intent there? But um hopefully they can get a sense. I think also facial expressions are going to embody language. Like if you're laughing and you're saying donde ha ha ha, that's not the way to go about. But I was being like legit, I was just trying to reach out to them and also hopefully use the language a little bit. Like I texted Cindy, I was like, Cindy, you would be both proud and embarrassed of the Spanish I used, and just showed her. And she's like, I thought that was pretty good. So there you go. So that's my 2023 wrapped, all of those things. And please, yeah, email me and let me know if you have any top moments or what you think about multicultural education. I think it's great. I'm just super excited. I can't wait to get back into the classroom and have students and start to put this into play because I have some great ideas for Latin. I've got some great ideas, so I'm excited about it. But yeah, so I think that's it. So I'm going to take a break. Yeah, when I come back, I will cover Birds of Prey, Volume 5, Number 4. I'll do some listener emails and I guess anime watch list as well. But first, Zayas's Radio Hour featuring my number one song of 2023. So you can hear what I'm talking about with harmonies. Strong Enough by Boy Genius. See you soon.